What a wonderful day, huh? Welcome. This is Remember Palestine with me, your host, Amina Taylor. And in today's jam-packed show, we speak of whispers of the third intifada. Will there be a third uprising? What form will this take? Who will be involved? And can a third intifada actually lead to workable solutions for, well, everyone or anyone? It was Abraham Lincoln who said, any people, anywhere, being inclined and having the power, have the right to rise up and shake off the existing government and force a new one that suits them better. But today we'll question if this rise in power will happen through art, peace, education, or will it be decorated with protest and demonstrations? Before we get into all of that and introduce you to my first guest for this half an hour, let's watch together this next music video. He was, of course, a former guest of this program. His name is Doc Jazz. The song is Intifada.
Occupation is a hazardous game. If you get your hands dirty, it will burn you like a flame. They want us to bow down, surrender our hometown. They're building colonies, creating a showdown. It's not political or matter analytical. It's plain and straight war crimes targeting civilians. North American Indians, Australian Aboriginals, the people of the land, all wiped into oblivion. It's never right to steal another people's country. Your Ubermensch philosophy has smothered your morality. No fake excuses, no media control can cover up the crime that is vivid to us all.
People try just to live their life in peace. Though they're occupied, can't control their lives, 'cause they're fighting to be free.
Have you heard the story about 1948? I'm sure you heard a story, but not what took place. Ethnic cleansing like the kind you saw in Kosovo, protected by the powerful and treated also lovable. Justice, see, they don't know what that is. Say power is a healthy way of solving the squid is. Military power, economical power, without continuous infusions, they won't last an hour. You better stop breaking up. It's a tragedy of inhumanity. Would you rather close your eyes? Of the world, beware of Zionism. It's a racist ideology of National Socialism. United Nations Resolution 3379. You heard it from the records, but not from our minds. Never give up. We're ready for the fight. We'll never give up. We struggle to survive. We'll never give up. Beloved Palestine, we're rising up to rescue Palestine. We're rising up. We'll never give up.
Thank you so much for that, Doc Jazz. And of course, some of the most eagle-eyed amongst you might be noticing our artist-in-residence, Zuhaib, working along. He'll reveal all a little bit later on in the show, but let me introduce our first guest. She's been here before. It really is a delight to have her back in the studio. Nandita Dawson, coordinator at Camden Abudis. Welcome, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We've got a few books today. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but just how has Camden Abudis been since we last spoke?
Well, we're going on steadily with our work of trying to link people from Camden and people from Abudis to help people in Camden and around understand the situation of people living in Palestine. And it's been going very well. We're building for another youth visit of kids from Palestine coming to London. They'll come in June. And we've just had 2 amazing women's visits. We took a whole group of women, 14 women from Camden and around actually, to Palestine, not just to Abu Dis, also to the West Bank. And that was an amazing visit in November. And then we've brought back 14 women as well from Palestine who came to Camden and went all over the country to 30 different places.
How did you choose the women from Camden who went first?
Well, it was a question of advertising and persuading and talking and seeing who would be interested. But we were very keen to take women from community centres and women's centres. The idea is really that if we can take people and they get to see how people are living there, they want to go back. We know that always happens. They want to go back and tell their friends and colleagues about it. So we thought if we can get people from lots of community centres, that will be lots of communities involved, and actually that has happened.
What did you find as the overwhelming response to this, especially when people, they wouldn't describe themselves as political, but a woman knows the pain of another woman, wherever she might find her.
That's exactly right, actually. And a very strong image leapt into my mind when you asked that question. We did lots of different things. I went with them. And one of the things that we did was go to Jerusalem. And we saw what's happening in Jerusalem and the incredible pressures that there are with Palestinians being pushed out by settlers all over the old city and the neighbourhoods nearby, and people being forced to live in tents, and people were incredibly shocked. They were shocked at the wall, they were shocked at what they were told, and then we turned around a corner and suddenly saw a group of people in the street and realised that we were with a family who were living just right opposite their house that they'd been pushed out of a little while before. And the image that came into my head when you were saying what were people's responses,
yes,
were the hugely upset faces of the British women as they heard the story of what was happening, and they were imagining themselves stuck outside their houses, not able to go into the places that they'd been born and brought up in and had their babies in.
Completely just thrown by the whole experience.
They were thrown by it. It's like all of our visits are. It's why we keep going with this thing. We're always taking people there. We bring people back here and they can speak for themselves, and that's brilliant. But when we take people over there, it's really so different from reading and looking and hearing about it.
Nothing replaces that personal experience.
And when people come back, they want to do things about it.
Which is important. You can just watch, or you can watch and then act. Nandita, stay with us, because in just a moment, Nada Issa, she stepped out of the Remember Palestine studios to speak with an individual who's earned the respect and admiration of the thousands she's come in contact with. Caoimhe Butterley is an Irish activist with a captivating story to tell. Here's part one.
Caoimhe Butterley is an Irish human rights activist who has worked in various Palestinian refugee camps, both in occupied territory and throughout the Middle East. Butterley is a pacifist who for many years has been a member of the International Solidarity Movement and the Free Gaza Movement, both of which are organisations that seek to assist the Palestinians under occupation or under siege by mobilising international civil society. Her works are many, and she continues to stand up in the face of injustice, whether confronting politicians such as Tony Blair on going to war in Iraq, or opposing Israeli soldiers threatening innocent Palestinian victims. I am delighted to have her joining me today. Caoimhe, thanks for joining us today. I know that you have been an activist for many years and you've partaken on a multiple of humanitarian missions, but I want to start off with really speaking to you about what compelled you to begin on this road.
I was raised in a family of parents that were very socially engaged. They both worked for humanitarian organisations. So although we're originally from Ireland, we were raised in different parts of Canada, Africa, and then I eventually worked in Latin America before moving to the Arab world. So I think because we were exposed to a lot of different cultures, and injustices while growing up.
During the cast-led operation, you were injured. Can you tell us a little bit more about that incident?
During an invasion of Jenin by the Israeli army, there was a closed military zone decreed in the bottom half of Jenin refugee camp, and we went on ambulances and foot to try and retrieve the bodies of the martyrs who had been killed and also of the wounded. While doing that and while trying to get in between in a situation where Israeli soldiers were using live ammunition at children, I was shot. But I was one of 21 people who were wounded on that day.
There is a lot of talk about a third Intifada uprising, where this is being communicated directly or implicitly. Do you believe that there is such thing in process?
There is a lot of discussion about the possibility of a third Intifada. I don't know how that's going to play out. You know, and I certainly feel as a foreigner, you know, as a solidarity activist, despite the fact that I live and work in Palestine, that it is not my role to dictate to Palestinians how and with what means they resist the occupation. But, you know, I think that hopefully it will encompass some of the more creative non-violent civil disobedience and resistance strategies that existed within the first Intifada. You know, and I think that's something that has been a loss in the second Intifada, with the exclusivity of a military strategy, in the sense that is a path of resistance, which is legitimate under international law in terms of when targeting military targets. Whatever form it takes, you know, it is a process that continues, and whether it stops with a third Intifada, whether it goes on, you know, I think one only has to look at history to understand that the Palestinian people will continue to resist.
Nada and Caoimhe Butterley will be back in a little while with part 2 of that interview, but my very patient guest Nandita Dawson from Camden Abu Dis still with us. And we mentioned the book in your hand there. People might have been wondering, oh, I can't get a look, I can't get a look. It is For Her Man, a handbook for young people on human rights in Palestine. And I wanted to say, first of all, that it's edited alongside, who is your co-editor?
Well, the coordinator of Camden Abu Dis in Abu Dis is Abdul Wahab Sabah, and I'm the coordinator in London.
So
but basically,
very
these
much
are
a
voices,
joint effort.
It's a joint effort, but these are very much voices of people from Palestine and Camden together.
And I have to say, written in both Arabic and English, which you explained to me before the show started, is a departure from the first 2 publications.
Yes, we've got 2 others, which I can show you. This one was people's stories from 1967, because at that point it was 2007 and 40 years since the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. So we started to ask people what they remembered, and these were written down in English. And that led us to thinking or discovering that people really wanted people's stories from now, and stories are very much a central part of our twinning. And so these are stories, but again, written down in English, stories from 1948 onwards. And I think that they're very, very useful as a resource for people trying to understand the texture of people's lives. But we wrote this down, and when it went back to Palestine, people said, but where's the Arabic copy?
Yeah, we can't read it.
We can't read it. We know the stories. We can see the photographs inside of the people in it. We know what it's about. But let us read what they've said. And so the next time, especially as it was done by and with children, we thought it had better be for children in both places, or for young people in both places.
And a few adults, I think, could actually get very, very well informed by just having a look.
Well, I hope so. It's a serious piece of work, actually. It starts at the beginning talking about the youth visit that it came from, and then it has questions about Palestine and questions about human rights. And it's meant as a workbook, really. It doesn't have to be used that way. But then we got the children who came last year, that was the Palestinian children, together with British children, to look at human rights and what it meant for them. We had a workshop, and we discovered what were the most important human rights, and people thought if they didn't have those human rights, what it would be like to have them, and if they had them, what it would be like not to have them. And from that we've come up with, well, the kids came up with descriptions. Look, this is in Arabic and in English, what the right is, what they should have, and actually, in fact, in Palestine, what it's like. And then,
sometimes these rights are not being addressed or honoured.
Unfortunately, most of the rights are not being addressed or honoured properly, because if you have a right to family life and some of your family are on the other side of the wall, then your family life is disrupted. Or if you have the right to proper health care and your local hospital that you need to go to is on the other side of the wall, then... Again,
a massive trust being violated there. Nandita, we're coming back to you in a little while, because it's now time for part 2 of our exclusive Caoimhe Butterley interview.
On the ground in Palestine, is there a real difference that can be felt between the way in which the Israeli soldiers or the Israeli militants treat Palestinians as opposed to international activists?
I think in our activism, in our solidarity activism in the West Bank and Gaza as foreign solidarity activists, we are very aware of the hypocrisy and double standards, in the sense that by virtue of the racism, of our foreign passports and blood, that we are less likely to get killed or wounded. I do feel that we have a measure of protection, but that is not absolute. And certainly I think those of us who were in Gaza during Operation Kasled, during the massacres in December and January 2009, really felt, that it was a Russian roulette, that every time we went out to accompany an ambulance, that, there was a very real possibility of our own violent deaths along with those of our colleagues and comrades, Palestinian paramedics on those ambulances. That we really, as solidarity activists, have to say that if we stand in solidarity, with the Palestinian people in struggle, that we do that in word and in deed, and that we are prepared to take some of the same risks that our Palestinian friends and colleagues have to face, and are prepared to take some of the same sacrifices as well.
Now, before I let you go, I have to talk to you about the Gaza boats. I know that you're part of the Free Gaza movement. Can you tell us a little bit more about this mission, when it's setting off, and how many people are expected to partake?
The flotilla is a culmination of basically 3 years of work by activists really from across the world. We're now, as the Free Gaza movement, working in coalition with 4 other organizations, amongst those IHH from Turkey, comrades and organizers from Greece, Sweden, Belgium, England, etc. So I think for us this is really, an escalation. We're very aware of the fact that if this is going to be an effective mission, if we are going to possibly, hopefully get in the almost 10,000 tons of cargo of reconstruction materials, medical relief, etc., that we are bringing, that we have to be a lot more strategic and politically astute than perhaps we were in our previous missions. And that means the sort of lobbying that we've been doing for the last year of governments, of trying to get statements calling for a safe passage, from parliamentary groups, commitments from ministries of foreign affairs in various countries that they will back us if we are blocked or attacked. It's important, I think, that we recognize that if we are going to resist the politics of a colonialist, expansionist, murderous state, that we really have to work with the same efficacy, the same nuance, and the same organization that they do, in resisting.
Caoimhe Butterley, thank you so much for coming in today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and having you with us. Thanks so much for coming in. Thank you.
And of course, we wish Caoimhe and all the members of the Free Gaza Flotilla the best of luck. And remember, it's just here on Press TV where you'll get the latest on the journey and the progress of those Gaza boats. And make sure you tune in every day, but especially here for your weekly updates. Nandita Dawson's still in the studio with me. And something you touched on during that interview with Caoimhe, that there was a story that had a lot of similarities. And you pointed to the fact that this new book is called For Hammam. Who is Hammam?
Oh yes, I wanted to tell you that because this is Hammam, who's a young man. He was a boy in Abu Dis who was actually shot on a demonstration in the end of 2008. And he was one of the very many people, unfortunately, who was really, really hurt. And we called this book after him.
Yes.
We're very glad he's got a bit better, although his life has been ruined. But he is one of the hundreds and thousands of people who's really suffered by the lack of the human right to be secure where you are. And while the youth visit was being planned, we were busy having to comply, obviously rightly, with all the child protection policies and actually work with our partners in Abu Dis to start thinking about a child protection policy for their community centre there. And during that time, one of the kids who actually goes to the community centre went out in the street and was shot by a soldier from very close range, which showed us that real child protection for the kids in Palestine is to get rid of the occupation.
How can we get our hands on this?
This book, you can look at our website, which is www.camdenabudis.net, or you can get it from bookshops. I mean, it's probably published with an ISBN, so if people remember the title, they can find it from their local bookshop or from Amazon or buy it from us.
And I think it's so important that they don't just have a little look and say, oh, well done. But hand in pocket, hand over the cash, take the book with you and spread that along, because it makes a difference, I would assume.
It would make a very big difference. But the other thing that we very much hope people will do, particularly if they're teachers or youth workers, or in fact anybody who's trying to influence other people's understanding of Palestine, the point of this book, which was a huge amount of work, of course, is for it to be used. We didn't make it for it to be made.
Yes.
It can be used.
It's not
in
a
so many
vanity project.
No, certainly not. And we're hoping it's part of a serious way of spreading awareness.
Nanita Dawson, thank you so much. Whenever you come on, there's always so much more to learn, and I can't believe the time's flown by so very quickly. And that website again?
www.camdenaboudis.net.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this is your show. Remember Palestine is your platform. It's a show that offers you the chance to get involved and come sit here beside us. Now remember, wherever you are in the world, keep sending in your video messages for Palestine. The people there really do take heed, and they watch and they see just what the rest of the world thinks of the situation. On this week's Voices Around the World, Surush from London sent his message.
Buying Israeli products provides Israel with money to produce and buy weapons which they can use against Palestine. Last couple of years, they've killed many innocent women, men and children, and you can help stop this by not buying any Israeli products and depriving them of the money to buy any weapons which they can use against Palestine.
Thank you very much for that, Surush. And of course, if you want to take part, just go to the website. We also have a Facebook page. And 30 to 60 seconds, that's all we need from you. Well, I'm delighted to say, down the line from Mexico, I will be speaking to Ilyas Farhoud. He's the chief editor of Intifada-Palestine.com. Hello, Mr. Farhoud.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us today. What is the point of your website?
Well, Intifada Palestine was started in January of last year during the Israeli assault on Gaza. And after seeing the coverage of the U.S. mainstream media, it was really downplaying the situation and favoring Israel, and so I wanted to start a website that could have the point of view of the Palestinians heard, and so I started it, and we've had a tremendous response from our readers.
What are they saying?
Well, they're very interested in hearing our point, the Palestinian point of view, because you don't hear it much in the U.S. mainstream media. It's kind of downplayed, drowned out, and all you hear is the Israeli side. And so they're really interested because they're not getting the truth, and that's the objective of our website, is to present the truth to the readers.
Well, by including the word intifada in the title, do you think people are very much pumped up when they read things? Are they looking for answers when they come to your website?
Well, a lot of people think intifada means it's violent. Actually, it's not violent necessarily. It can be peaceful, non-violent, and what it means, intifada means shaking off oppression, occupation, and actually intifada has the people of Palestine have always resisted oppression and occupation since 1917, but people tend to call it intifada when the level of violence heats up, and then the Zionist violence to stop Palestinians from resisting oppression and occupation.
Well, we're just very pleased that you're doing all that hard work, and the response has been fantastic. Ilyas Fahoud from intifadapalestine.com, thank you very much. And this is where we leave you for this first half, but we don't want you to go anywhere, because Remember Palestine will be back after the world news headlines. Please stay with us.
She's standing under